You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
It only takes one step, twist, or crunch to know something doesn't feel right. Essentia Health's orthopedic and sports medicine team gets you back to doing what you love with commitment, resilience, intention. We're here to keep you moving forward. Visit essentiahealth.org to learn more about orthopedics and sports medicine, like nowhere else.
Hello and welcome to the Duluth News Tribune's Bulldog Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat reporter at the News Tribune.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD Hockey on My Nine Sports.
Joining us this week on the podcast is the new head coach of the Bulldogs women's hockey team, but you're no stranger to Duluth or UMD women's hockey. We've actually tried to get you on the podcast before. You and I were talking a little bit before we started recording. You have that international experience with the Hockey Canada and everything. You're gonna find out throughout the year. I'm gonna randomly want to start picking your brain about PWHL or U18s or any of that. We had tried to get you on the podcast before. Now you're the head coach. You have no choice. You can't duck us anymore. It's part of your responsibility. Welcome to the podcast, Maura Schuler.
Thank you. So excited to be here and to connect with you guys and talk hockey.
Yeah, we were joking. Zach was joking. Are you looking forward to the weekly press conferences? And we warned you, we don't always talk about hockey. The same happens on this podcast, by the way. We stray into tangents here and such. So, Laura, you were named the head coach of the Bulldogs in July, but you were an assistant under Shannon Miller from 2008 to 2015. And then you came back in 2021 to work under Maura Crowell. She left in May to accept the head coach job at Dartmouth. You grew up near Toronto in Scarborough. You played and coached at Northeastern. What brought you originally to Duluth back in 2008? And when was it that you kind of fell in love with the program and this place, Duluth? Right away.
I wanted to be mentored. I've never really had an opportunity when I first started in coaching to be mentored by somebody who was experienced and had the resume that Shannon Miller had. And obviously I played for Shannon. I knew what kind of a coach she was. And she had connected with me and asked me if I would ever want to, be a part of her staff. And for me, obviously the program up here was doing unbelievable things. So I thought it was an incredible opportunity for me to be able to go and get mentored by her. And I remember she brought me up for the 2008 Frozen Four here in Duluth, Minnesota, and I was just blown away by how many people were out there at the deck at the time, watching the game, and what a spectacular game it was. I mean, I just had chills from the get-go as soon as I stepped into the arena, and so that was kind of her way of recruiting me. And right after that final game, I was like, yes, I'm definitely coming.
Is recruiting coaches pretty similar to recruiting players in a way there? Because it does. What you just described sounded like a recruiting visit that a player might go on.
Absolutely. I think it's really important that, as a head coach, that you surround yourself by people who are going to compliment you and, help your program to get to that next level, whatever you want to get to. So.
Was it intimidating coming into Duluth? I mean, that wasn't, I don't know what 5-year period you would call the heyday of UMD women's hockey. Maybe it was the early 2000s. Maybe it was the 09 to 12 region right when you first came in. Maybe it was the last 5 years when you've been to back-to-back Frozen Fours and the national championship game. But there was so much good happening with the program when you came in. You won another title in 2010, your second season, I believe. Yep. What was it like stepping into a program that at that time was dominating the college women's hockey scene?
I would just say exciting. Just all around. Everything was just so exciting to have the opportunity to be able to coach such elite players. We had so many incredible players. And UMD has always attracted like the very top of the top players from all over the world, right from, way back 2000, 2000, 2001, all the way through up to today. So it has had just a tremendous history of excellence, from the get-go and sustain excellence. And for me, I'm just so excited to be, to have been a part of that and to continue to be a part of that. It's such an honor and privilege to be where I'm at right now.
Why did you want to come back in 2021?
Yeah,
I wrote about this. They pass you up for the head coaching job. You end up at Dartmouth for a little bit, coaching the Olympics.
Yeah.
Had a lot of opportunities in there. And 2021, you decided to come back to Duluth. What brought you back here?
When we kind of first left, it was hard. I didn't want to leave. I absolutely love Duluth. I love the program. I love the girls that, I got the incredible honor to be able to coach and get to know as people. And so, leaving was hard for me. And I had actually called Maura. My wife and I, we were trying to get back to Minnesota. Mm-hmm. She's from Minnesota, so we had a lot of close friends and family here. Over the 7 years that I was here, got to know so many wonderful people from this community. So we really wanted to get back to Minnesota. And I had called Maura about another head coaching position that I was a finalist for. And she had just said, if that doesn't turn out, would you ever consider coming back and working here with us? And I was like, absolutely, it's a no-brainer. My wife's sister lives right here in Duluth. Now we're 5 streets up from them. And, so it's so wonderful to be surrounded by people who support you, love you, and, at the same time, you get to do what you're passionate about.
Was it a difficult thing? You said it's a no-brainer, but was it difficult at all going back to 2015, getting passed over at that time when they hired Maura for the head coaching job to then return to the program? So much had changed, I think, in that 6 or 7 year span, but was it difficult at all to come back to Duluth after what happened?
Not at all. Not at all. I think just because when I think of this area, oftentimes, even while I was gone, we would come back here in the summers, to be around friends and family. So for us, as soon as that opportunity opened up, we wanted to make sure we jumped on it.
Looking at what you did in those 6 years, you got a chance to go coach in the Olympics. You got a chance to go be with Hockey Canada and rise the ranks there. I mean, obviously, I think the emotions were pretty raw in 2015, but looking back on the last 6 or 7 years, I said on our season opening podcast, it's impossible to look at the Maura Crowell era here at UMD and call it anything but a success. And I think your 6 or 7 years have been really good too since that happened. And so it kind of seems like everything's worked out as we go forward now here in 24, 25.
Yeah, absolutely. And when, I did get passed over back then, Mel Davidson from Hockey Canada had called me right away and had offered me the head position. And so for the next 4 years, I was able to do that and learned so much through that experience, my 4 years there with Hockey Canada leading up into the Olympics. And I got to work with so many NHL coaches. So that was just so cool to be able to, grow my knowledge of the game and to build rapport with some of those coaches. And now I have, good relationships with them to be able to call those coaches, ask them questions, things like that. So, everything kind of worked out for the better.
All right. The reporter in me, and you already brought up one of them that I need to follow up. The reporter in me regrets not following up with a couple of questions from your introductory press conference. The first one, I think we can all do the math and know maybe what head coaching job you applied for and you were up for in 2021. Yep. Do you want to share which one that was?
It was St. Thomas.
It was St. Thomas, right? Yeah. And you had applied at Mankato too, hadn't you?
Yeah.
What is wrong? I remember when you got passed over at Mankato. I was like, "What is going?" And no offense to John Harrington or anything like that. I think I told you this. I was in 2015. I was big on. I think I was probably one of the first reporters that asked you when they announced that they weren't bringing back Shannon. I think I jumped on you right away and went, "Are you applying for the head coaching job?" And I probably caused a little bit of a stir. And I thought you were a top candidate in 2015 for this job. But when Mankato passed you over, I was like, "What are they doing?" And again, no offense to Joel Johnson, but St. Thomas, what are you doing? But there was another job you said you applied for, a men's assistant coach job. Which one was
UVM. University of Vermont. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I was a finalist for that, and that was an incredible opportunity and just experience that I was able to go through. And to this day now, even as I've gone through the hiring process, as far as like hiring people, I've gone back to my experience there and what they had me do, because it was really great. Todd Woodcroft at the time had me break down a bunch of video. I did some power play stuff for him, some 5-on-5 offensive zone stuff. So it was really cool to kind of go through that experience and see how they do it on the men's side. And now since then, I have definitely incorporated that on our side, on the women's side, when we're hiring coaches to be a part of our programs.
We had mentioned you coach in the Olympics. You said you've worked with NHL coaches and stuff. You're at that development camp with the Washington Capitals in 2022. What was that experience like?
Unbelievable. Peter Laviolette is probably like the nicest person on earth. Made you feel so comfortable. His entire staff was absolutely wonderful, so welcoming. But got to learn a lot there as well. He totally shared all of his tactics, what they do. And it was really neat just to be there firsthand to kind of see how they go about their day. And I will tell you this, it's the exact same of, what we do on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is what I've taken from Hockey Canada and what I've learned through there. And, kind of when you look at that too, obviously, everything that you learn there is from the NHL too, because they have their NHL coaches coming in and coaching their national program. So it was nice to see that what we're doing is very similar to what they're doing in the NHL.
Has the NHL or is the NHL, is that something you would ever be interested in? Because everyone we talk to, you're really highly regarded as a hockey mind. Yeah. And such. And it seems like you would, but with your resume and your knowledge of the game, that you would be a good fit. I bugged Maura. I thought maybe you were going to get poached by the PWHL a year ago when that league started. But the NHL, is that something you would ever consider? I think if an opportunity ever came knocking, that I would definitely consider it. But I'm just so excited to be where I'm at right now and so honored. And again, to be somewhere where you absolutely love the city, you love the people, you love the community, and you get to do what you love to do each and every day is just a dream.
We mentioned, Matt joked earlier that through your tenure as an assistant coach, you've been able to avoid talking. That's not necessarily your comfort zone, your forte. You're really good with the team and with the hockey, but I'm more behind the scenes. You're behind the scenes person. Don't blame you. You've left it to the head coaches to deal with us. Yeah. So we know a lot about you, but we haven't necessarily got a chance to sit down with you a ton over the years. You've been here a lot. Yeah. So what is Laura Schuler, the head coach, like? I mean, you mentioned you came here to be mentored by Shannon Miller. I'm sure you learned things from her. You learned things from other coaches, Peter Laviolette, the people at Hockey Canada, Maura Crowell. Yes. What things should we expect going forward into this new era with Laura Schuler, the head coach? Well, one, I think I have a ton of energy, and that's, thanks to living in Duluth, where you're able to get outside and be active each and every day. So that helps to bring the energy. And I think that I'm super positive, and I think that's one of the things that our student athletes really like about me. I try to take a positive approach with everything that we're doing, even in teaching and what we're doing. It's so important that you're constantly looking for the positives, picking out the small little details that kids do to create big moments, on the ice. So, I think a positive, energetic person. One of the things we talked about in the season opening podcast that we were covering over the summer months was the transfer portal, right? Yes. When there's a coaching change, kids get the opportunity to change programs. Incoming freshmen get the chance to decommit and reopen that process. You didn't lose anybody, which is unheard of. Nobody that was not already in the portal before the change was made. That's unheard of in college sports, really. And we talked about it a little bit in the other podcast that we did. But what were those conversations like? You get the job, the kids the players that were already here knew who you were, knew a lot about you. But what were specifically the freshmen that maybe you had to introduce yourself to a little bit more? But you were part of their recruitment, I'm sure. So what was that? That class I've known for the last 2 years. So what were those conversations like to get everybody on board going forward?
Well, first of all, I give 100% credit to Maura and the culture that she has created at UMD. You know, she has done such a fantastic job. The student athletes that played for her, absolutely, just like me, love being here in Duluth, love playing at Amsoil Arena. And so she just did such a great job, you know, laying that foundation down. And so to me, it was not a shock that nobody wanted to leave because she did such a good job. And then, you know, I just let our team know that I was there for them, and that I wanted to, similar to, you know, way back in 2015, always want to make sure that this program has done so much for me. I want to make sure that I do everything I can for the student athletes and for the program to leave it in a better spot, you know? So that's what I was just trying to do, going about my day to day and letting the students know that, you know, I'm there for them. And in the end, it ended up turning out, you know, how it turned out. So super excited for that.
Do you think that the fact that no one transferred, and we kept hearing it from players after players, yes, they loved Coach Crowell and they came here to play for her, but she wasn't the number one reason why they came to Duluth. They came here to be Bulldogs.
Bulldogs, yeah.
Do you think that speaks to the evolution of the program over the last decade? Because in 2015, I think the program, and that was my first season covering UMD women's hockey, and obviously I was familiar with it from my time in college women's hockey, but I feel like at that time it was often about one person. A bit like Shannon Miller and the Bulldogs were one thing. Now it seems like the program has risen above one person, and feel free to shoot me down. That is something you are always welcome to do as head coach. I can take it. Be like, no, Matt, you're completely wrong.
She was welcome to do that as an assistant coach.
That too, yes. Many coaches have done it over the years, and I'm happy because it makes me a better reporter. I don't pretend to know everything, but it seems like this program has really evolved over the last 10 years to be, you know, Bulldogs first, and then maybe I don't want to say it doesn't matter who the head coach is, but it's not necessarily, people are coming here to play for the Bulldogs, not necessarily coming here to play for one person. And I don't think every program in the country right now can say that. I'm not going to say which programs, but I think it's about the Bulldogs now, not necessarily who the head coach is.
I don't know if I can speak on behalf of like student athletes and why they definitely want to be here, but regardless of like when you look at the past, we were still attracting the cream of the crop players all the way through, and to this day we're still doing that, you know. So I think it's more than whoever the head coach is. It's this amazing community. You know, I feel like this niche is so unique up here in Duluth, where you get you know, you still get the feel of a city. You get all the music, arts, entertainment, all that stuff. And then you have the great outdoors in your backyard, and you have Lake Superior. You get that lake effect, you know, right here. And not many other programs have that. And then plus on top of that, you get a great education, and you're playing for a cream of the crop program. Like, to me, it's more than whoever is coaching. It's everything that UMD has to offer these student athletes. And I feel like that was the same back then, and that's the same today.
It's fun. You mentioned the community and the outdoors and everything around here. It's fun watching, especially in the preseason on Instagram, your players get out a lot and enjoy. Yes. I think that's always been something I've seen the last 10 years covering the program. But what do you like to do when those rare moments you get away from the rink? And I know you didn't get many of those this last summer with the changeover. Shu, what is it that you love to do when you do get time away from the rink? So,
and aren't we so lucky that the great outdoors is in our backyard? And I literally leave from the back of my house. I love to mountain bike. I love to trail run. And so there are so many different trails here. And actually the other day I was up in the Piedmont area, got lost a little bit, and a 4-mile run turned into a 7-mile run. So, but I absolutely love it. You know, that's where I kind of rejuvenate and, get to think a lot. So in the summer times, it's a lot of mountain biking, trail running. And then in the winter, I like to skate ski. And again, amazing trails around here. And I also have a fat tire bike. So I think I have actually 5 bikes. I have a gravel bike, 2 mountain bikes and then a fat tire bike with studs for the winter. So
if Clint Austin, our photographer, was a part of this podcast, we would have just veered into an hour-long talk about fat tire bikes and biking and everything like that. That does sound like, I don't want to say the stereotypical Duluthian, but that sounds like a big reason why people, want to come back here and stay here and live here. How important for a hockey coach is it to have hobbies and stuff like that?
My gosh, yeah.
to clear your mind, especially. I'm glad to hear that you actually got out of Amsoil Arena or hockey rinks at some point in the last few months here. How important is that?
So important.
Balance?
And, we don't have a ton of free time. And so when you can, either get up in the morning and go for a run or a bike or right after work and be able to spend 20, 30 minutes doing something just to help rejuvenate you. It's so important. Other places, you have to travel like an hour, 2 hours to get somewhere to go ride a bike. If you're in the city, it's not that convenient, especially to get the kind of trails that we have around here. So this is a really unique, special place.
You mentioned that you don't have a lot of free time, and we joked before we started recording that the off season is kind of a misnomer for coaches. Maybe the media members get to take some time off in the summer months, but for you coaches and even the players now, it's really a year-round commitment. When you're not at the rink practicing, playing games during the season, you're doing other things, preparing, recruiting. You did a lot of those things. You're on the recruiting trail as an assistant coach, associate head coach.
Yep.
Now you're in the head coaching role. Things changed a little bit. You bring in 2 assistant coaches, one of which we know really well in Ashley Bricklick. But what roles do you have to take on now that you weren't doing before and pass on to those 2? You mentioned that some other coaches have been really good about engaging you in power play and video review. So have you figured out that dynamic with your assistant coaches?
Yeah. I think, one, this is, I don't know if I'm going off topic here, but being a head coach and then becoming an assistant coach allows you to be a better assistant coach, to know, to be able to understand the needs of a head coach and what's important. So I was very fortunate to be able to do both roles, after being a head coach, coming back and being an assistant again. And I really kind of dove into the one-on-one relationships, really got to work individually with student athletes in terms of watching video, breaking down their shifts and things like that. And so now I'll be handing that off, obviously, to my assistant coaches to be able to do. But the one thing that's really awesome and exciting as a head coach is you get to implement your vision in all of your systems. So it's your voice initially, and then they're constantly refining that, as they get to work individually with student athletes. So I'm excited to be able to do the role that I'm in now, because I do have a very clear vision of, who we want to be as Bulldogs and how we want to play. In the last 2.5 weeks here that we've been practicing, I've been really, really happy with what we're seeing on the ice, but it'll be our assistant coaches that continue to, make sure they're diving in to doing one-on-one video with our student athletes to refresh that and keep that going.
I don't know if you fully accepted this at this point in your career, but you've now entered the point that Shannon Miller was to you when you first got to Duluth in 2008, where people probably want to come to Duluth to be mentored by somebody like you in the coaching profession. How important is that to you? I mean, obviously the development of your players and seeing them succeed at UMD, seeing them now go on to the PWHL, the Olympics, that stuff we're always going to talk about. But we've talked about Shannon Miller's coaching tree. We've talked about Scott Sandlin's coaching tree. Now Maura Crowell is starting to have a coaching tree at various levels. How important is it to you to maintain the development of your assistant coaches as you bring in that staff for the first time?
Super important. And I think the goal of any head coach is to make sure that they end up, being better than you are, so that they get the opportunity to learn from all the things that you do well, but at the same time learn from your mistakes, so that when they are ready to go on and become a head coach, that they do it way better than whatever you were able to do. So,
all right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to have more with Laura Schuler. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Greetings from Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity because here you will find curiosities. Whether it's a look inside the Northern Rail Train Car Inn or an introduction to Duluth's musical roboticist, Robot Rickshaw, we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. Each week, I'm joined by my fellow reporters who share the unique and fascinating stories that they discover while exploring the Northland. You can find new episodes of the Northlandia podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join us along this journey and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.
Hi, I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Explore Superior and Douglas County history with me on Archive Dive, a monthly podcast available at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. They're proud to be team physicians for the UMD Bulldogs and provide sports medicine care to more than 25,000 student athletes in the community to ensure they can compete at the highest level while protecting their long-term health and athletic futures. Thanks to Essentia Health for their support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast. I'm Matt Wellens, along with my co-host, Zach Schneider, and our guest, UMD women's hockey coach, Maura Crowell. So one of the things I want to try and do this season on the podcast is get questions from you, the listeners. So we're going to try and give you a heads up, either via social media or this podcast of upcoming guests.
Is that your way of saying you're running out of prep?
No,
And you're looking for some freebies.
I'm getting lazy
Yeah.
and asking you. No, I'm trying to engage the listeners. Is how I'm putting it. So we got a couple questions from listeners for you, Shu. Dan on X, what is your favorite arena to coach in?
Amsoil.
I should have prefaced. Dan's a longtime listener and friend. Dan, you got to preface that, man. Come on.
Well, first of all, can I just say though, how lucky are we to play in an NHL quality facility? I don't care. Any other building doesn't compare to Amsoil. And I've through my experience and coaching and being able to, interact with different NHL coaches and seeing their facilities each and every day, Amsoil is just unbelievable. And no other program has what we have. You think we have two bowls. We have a bar that's serving both bowls, the lower bowl and the upper bowl. All the wonderful seats that we have, and no other place has that. They might have, one or two booths up top, but we've got a whole row of it, and it's just unbelievable. The hot tubs, the cold tubs, the saunas, the locker room, and everything at Amsoil, all the support system, the support staff, everybody's under one roof. So, again, I don't think any other program in the world has what we have. And so, for sure, Amsoil is my absolute favorite place. But if I had to pick another one, it would be a bit of a toss-up between Wisconsin and Minnesota. Obviously at Wisconsin, they do a really good job in selling out. So it's a really fun atmosphere to play in.
Much smaller venue, than everywhere else, actually, while outside of the OSU ice rink. But that rink is in a league of its own. I'll say.
So that environment's really fun to play in, especially when we beat them there. And then of course, same thing with Ritter. They do a really good job in getting in fans there. So again, creates for a really nice environment. But the thing that I do like about playing at Ritter is we get a lot of our fans, and our fans have been spectacular in making sure that they're loud and, cheering for us and we can hear them. And so it makes you kind of feel like you're at home.
Yeah, Maura Crowell got sick of the storyline we always pulled out, and she was right. We went to the well a little too often, but it was so true that Ritter is kind of like a second home to you guys in a way, and you've played a lot there over the last few years. From Drew on X, what were you doing when you got the job offer to be head coach of the Bulldogs?
Good question. I'm trying to remember.
There was so much going on at that time, right?
I think I was working, and I think Forrest had said, "Can you give me a call?" And I might have been on a recruiting call. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was working.
Yeah, and I think I said it at your introductory press conference. I think that's what impressed me the most was, and I had heard about it throughout the whole process, was Shu is so busy right now. Shu's so busy. Because a couple of us were like, what is taking so long? Why is this higher? We're impatient. Again, me being selfish, I wanted my summer to get going. I also was hoping it didn't get announced during Grandma's Marathon because that's the other event I cover, and I wanted to be fair to Zach. I didn't want him to be having me trying to break news during the middle of his event.
I would have had to come to a press conference during marathon week. That
that was the other thing. It's like, Zach's busy this week, so we can't do it this week. But right after Grandma's, it was like, come on, let's get this announced. That was the most impressive thing to me, is that you kept on doing the job. I mean, people were like, she hasn't been offered the head coaching job yet, but she's basically doing the head coaching job already. You were already, that had to make the transition definitely seamless.
Yeah. And, in the recruiting world nowadays, it's like you have to constantly be in constant communication with recruits, like once a week. And now it's all Zoom calls. So, I remember on June 15th, my day was packed from 8 o'clock in the morning until, 9 p.m. at night, just straight through one phone call after the next. And then it's like, okay, so now all those 30 kids that I just talked to, I have to continue to, stay in touch with them every week. So that's what I was doing, as well as trying to get out on the road. I didn't get out as much as I wanted to. And normally that, is shared amongst 3 people. So it's a lot easier, It
was just you and Justin.
So
right?
yeah. And I had 30 calls. I think he might've had like 20 or so to do. But, in a recruiting class, if you're looking to bring in 4 or 5 players, then, you got to be talking to 30, 40 people, So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was going to ask, how many kids are you? Is it usually around 30, 40? Does it maybe depend on how many recruits you want to bring in and such?
It does. And it's kind of like you're recruiting, 7 players for every spot that you have, because there's big competition. We're going against Ohio State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, obviously now St. Thomas with the academics. That is definitely another school that's going to, do well in no time at all. But yeah, and then just obviously some of the other schools that we compete against, outside of the WCHA. So
don't give away all your secrets, but what are the Laura Schuler recruiting tactics going to look like from a broad perspective? We saw when you were first here in your first stint, Shannon Miller was so heavy on the Europeans and worked out so well. Yep. When Maura first started, it felt like she hit Minnesota really hard, and then she kind of evolved, and you got more Europeans during the end of her tenure, and that worked out really well.
Yeah.
Is there a mix there? What's the focus of your staff right now to make sure that the home base is covered, or do you have to expand that a little bit?
I think you're always expanding, but you can't ignore that Minnesota is the state of hockey and some of the best players. If you look at the U.S. national team and where a lot of those players are coming from, they're coming from Minnesota, So, and it's in our backyard. So, we have to make sure we're doing our due diligence and getting out there and being really proactive and identifying, who's the cream of the crop here in Minnesota. It is definitely still challenging to get those players, a lot of them still want to be Gophers or go play for Wisconsin or what have you. But at the same time, you do find the players that want, that balance that Duluth offers with, city life and the outdoor life. And at the same time, play for an incredible program. So we're going to continue to go hard after those kids. But, I think you just gotta look worldwide and get the best of the best, no matter where they're from, and go after them.
Yeah, you got to be careful giving away secrets on this podcast. We know of at least one Ivy League coach who still listens to us regularly. We're hoping to expand that demographic to 2 now.
They might know the secrets, though, already.
They might already know the secrets, yeah. We'll see if I know one Ivy League coach was very dedicated to listening to us. Part of it's because we kind of like poke her still, take shots at her sometimes on this podcast.
I'm looking ahead on the script, and you're about to
We're
do it
about
again.
to do it. That's how we keep. That's how we keep her listening. I'm curious if the other one, the newest Ivy League coach, is going to keep listening to us as well. Some quick hits to close things out. I actually went back and found some of the quick hits we used with Maura the first time we had her on the podcast. She was already a couple seasons in when we started this thing out. So I'll get into them here. Your team, we've learned via this podcast, is very passionate about coffee and Duluth coffee shops.
Yeah.
I believe Emma Soderberg and Ashton Bell have been to like every coffee shop in St. Louis County and probably Superior and the whole region here. They're also very passionate about their coffee shops. I think it was who was it on here last year? Was it Mary Kate O'Brien? That someone revealed that there's like clans or groups depending on what coffee shop. So which camp are you in? Tim Hortons, Starbucks, Caribou Coffee, or Dunkin'?
Oh my gosh. Well, Caribou, of course. It's
You're a
Minnesotan.
Caribou. Okay. See, I wasn't sure with your Canadian roots if you were Tim Hortons or
well,
not.
you know, if I'm in Canada, definitely Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But here
obviously we don't have Tim Hortons
We
here.
don't.
Is it true though?
So
Are
it's
there
Caribou.
cliques, coffee cliques?
Oh yeah,
amongst the team?
yeah. But you know what? I recently just discovered 190.
Okay.
Oh
yeah,
wow,
that one's a very
that's
popular.
spectacular. Yeah, very good.
If you want
Yeah.
coffee recommendations,
Yeah.
the UMD women's hockey team. In fact, I
Yeah.
went to them when I did a Frozen 4 guide.
Yep.
Got the coffee recommendations and very passionate group on that.
And obviously, I'll just add to the Duluth Coffee Company because that is another one that everybody enjoys. Yes.
Yeah. I bring up the chains because I feel like that's when you're on the when you guys are on the road and such like that. I remember in Erie at that Frozen 4, like a couple players were walking from the hotel to the Tim Hortons, but were upset
Right.
because I think the drive-through was only open and you couldn't walk through the drive-through. And then
Right,
they were like, why
right.
can't I do that? What's your favorite recruiting trip?
I would say Stony Creek, just because it's close to family, so I get an opportunity to see, my parents and my brothers. So yeah, probably that one, which is this weekend, and I'm not going. And so I'm kind of upset at that one. My 2 assistant coaches will be there.
Is there a big tournament that goes on in Stony Creek there?
Huge tournament. Yep. Yeah.
This is one of the disadvantages of being the head coach.
Being a head coach, you
now.
don't get to do that
Yeah.
as much,
Yeah.
at least during the season.
Yeah, I believe Maura was disappointed one year when Laura Bellamy got the Sweden trip instead of her because she was stuck here doing head coaching duties. You have a new coaching staff, sort of. Some of them are new, some of them are returning. Goaltending coach Justin Grant is back. Ashley Bricklick is kind of doing like you, doing a return
to
here
Duluth.
now. And she had played for you originally.
Yeah.
And such. Now she's working for you. And then you have former Buckeye Olivia Soares coming to Duluth as well. So this next set of questions, when Zach is talking about poking Maura and Laura, they actually started it. Let's be on the record. Maura, as Laura Bellamy would eventually say, she got sewered on the podcast by Maura on this for some of these questions. I'm going to have you break down the coaching staff. And we got away from this because when I started asking all these questions, you became the default answer in 2021. You were the best skater, the best shooter, the best everything. Everyone was telling us, Shu has still really got it. Who is the fastest skater on your coaching staff?
Ooh, I'm going to go with probably Liv Soares.
Okay.
She's the youngest.
It does give her an advantage.
Yep.
She's got the advantage there for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's got the sickest mitts on the coaching staff?
I might go with me.
You, huh?
Yeah, but it's a toss-up between Brick and I.
Okay.
I don't know. They're all good.
Brick did these, and I did a story on it during the pandemic when everything had to be like over video. Brick did these phenomenal videos, like from her garage, like doing like stick handling drills and everything.
Yeah,
and was putting them out
yeah.
on social media and stuff, and it was cool to see. And yeah, you could tell then that her hands were still as good as they were when she was a player. Who's the best shooter?
Brick.
Brick?
Yeah.
Still
For sure. She still has it.
Still has it.
Yeah.
I think that's the only one. Oh, who would be the best goalie? Who would you turn to in goal?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to say, obviously, Justin.
Right.
But of the three of us, great question, because obviously it was Lou before.
Yeah, but someone gave an answer that I don't think they picked Lou when I said best goal, because she doesn't like to. Apparently, she didn't play goalie much as a coach. She hasn't put on the goalie pads heard for a while.
Right.
Yeah, but they might have picked Justin. That might have been somebody that picked Justin over Lou.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with Justin.
Justin still solid.
I think the other one we've asked. So you said Brick is the best shooter, but if you had one penalty shot,
there we go,
and you had to score, who's taking it?
Brick. Yeah.
Didn't even no hesitation there at all.
Yeah.
All right. These are for last one actually here. We'll wrap up the podcast with this one. If you weren't coaching hockey, what would you be doing?
That's funny that you asked that question, because so many people are like, if you win the lottery, what would you want to do? And I'm like, I'd still want to coach.
Right.
Right. I just love it so much. So, but riding my mountain bike somewhere here in Duluth. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd still be here in Duluth riding the mountain bike. Do you ride in the winter still?
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be 15 to 20 degrees out, under 15, that's kind of cold.
Then it's too cold for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Shu, thank you so much for finally coming on the podcast here with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
That's all the time we have on Bulldog Insider this week. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Like us, subscribe, and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/Bulldog Insider. Subscribe to gain access to our coverage all season long. Zach, disclosure, we're recording this actually before the season starts. You're all going to be hearing this right before the Bulldogs season opener at home, the home season opener against Syracuse. What's the coverage look like television viewing wise?
We don't have any TV games for the women until they host Minnesota, which I think is mid-November. That's our first of our 6 series that we're having for the women on TV. So it's a very back half heavy schedule for us this year. But they're all available on the WCHA streaming app, so you can catch all the games home or away on that. And Tom Hansen has the call on those, so it's always a fun listen. But TV starts in November with the Gophers.
Yeah, Big Ten Plus to stream women's
Big
games.
Ten Plus, I'm sorry.
And WCHA TV on Big Ten Plus. And I think they changed the package a little bit this year. But if you're a longtime subscriber to it, I believe you got a discount to. You're getting grandfathered into the old price is what I learned when my subscription was renewed recently.
It's good to have the soft open for the women for a broadcaster, because I get to watch the team a little bit before we do our first game. So I'll know more about the women the first day that we do it than the men's, which is going to be brand new when they hit the ice. So
see, there's Zach being selfish now. It's not just me. All right, thanks to all of you for listening each week, and thanks to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their support of the Bulldog Insider Podcast. We'll catch you next week.